Hi everybody, back with another update, but this time it's not going to be a painting video update, but it's more of a figure showcase update. I've had a couple of requests to show off my Emperor's Children, so for Slaaneshmas we're going to have a showcase of some of my painted models. I'm not going to show all of them because that would take entirely too long. But in the thumbnail, I've got kind of an overall of most of the painted figures. I don't have any of the work in progress items like my Chosen or my Raptors or that sort. But just to give you a little bit of a history quickly here, I started these guys up probably around maybe 2007, 2008, somewhere in that window. Might have been a little bit later than that, but I've had them going for a good while, and they're kind of an on and off again project because the paint job, as you'll see, is kind of involved, and I'll get into that as we go through. But we'll just crack into this. I'll start with the biggest and most important part of it, the HQs, and who's more HQ than Fulgrim himself. This is the Forge World Fulgrim model. Painted him up, I want to say it was right after he was released, maybe within about the first year after. He took a while. It's one of the few times I actually painted up something this size at the time. Most of the larger items I'd ever painted were either vehicles or large monsters for my Skaven that I had been working on. And in fact, he's also one of the few times I actually left the head off the model and painted that separately, so I was able to get details underneath where his hair connects and that sort without running too many risks. And I did some interesting purple metallics that for the life of me, I don't remember how I did them on the layer blade here. There we go. It is kind of a purplish silver. Might have been a wash or a mix I did, but it's kind of lost to time now. But that is my work on Fulgrim. I remember having a good time painting him, and we'll see how the future goes. If he'll ever arrive on the table, since I never got around to playing Heresy as much as I would have liked to. I never got a chance to use him. Maybe I'll use him as like a Demon Prince or something someday. But moving down, we've got next my oldest HQ choice, both, historically and the first HQ choice I bought. The old Emperor's Children Chaos Lord model with the Nightmare Choir. You don't see him very often on the table anymore. He was a fun time back in the day. He died so many times to Grey Knights, it's not even funny. My regular gaming opponent for the time, my father, played Grey Knights, so of course Chaos kind of got trounced a good bit, especially with the demons being involved. Those demons got none of their invulnerable saves, so it was a bit of a punishing time, but totally worth it. Had a great time with it. There's him. And my other Chaos Lord, Lord Decadus. He's a bit of a kit bash. I don't recall, I think he was Master of the Fleet or something like that, but he is based on the old Master of the Chapter body. I took a liking to it because of its kind of casual pose, and of course the wing on the shield was always, very Emperor's Children, and the gem being on it, it just screamed Emperor's Children. And when those new Raptors came out, I absconded with one of their Power Claw arms, and instead of using the come at me bro sort of pose for one of them, I just turned the hand up as he's beckoning you forward. Throw a Chaos backpack on and a Chaos head, and bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself a Chaos Lord. not used him quite as often, and in 9th and 10th edition, he's no longer a legal unit, which, yeah, I have things to say about that. Taking away all of our weapon options and our ability options with pretty much all the races across the game. Anyway, we have next Lucius the Eternal, of whom I turned the arm down on. I feel looks a lot better having the arm down than the whip just kind of defying gravity hanging out there, which, granted, it's a living whip, it's a demon weapon, but I wanted to have him kind of the farthest along in the pinks on the armor, mixing with the purples still, but he's very detailed, and doing the edge highlights was always a good time. It was kind of like get those details to pop as best as possible, and this model almost paints itself in that regard. And while we're on characters with heavily detailed armor, here's my Dark Apostle. Now, I just finished him up not too long ago. I don't joke when I say that this figure has probably spent 3 or 4 editions. I can't remember exactly when the Dark Apostle first appeared, but I remember kit bashing this guy out of the existing Dark Apostle figure. And basically, he's got the old Emperor, one of the old Emperor's Children heads, some banner, cloth, what have you, from a Skaven Plague Monk kit, the floating speaker system from another of the masters of the chapter, a banner from the Demonettes, an arm from, I want to say it was a Dark Angel's chaplain, and I couldn't even tell you what all I used to make the Rapturous standard looking speaker staff. And then blades from the 3rd edition Dark Eldar. I know those were from the Dark Eldar kit that I actually got from an old opponent when he got out of the game. He turned over what is now actually the majority of my Dark Angel's army is formerly his army, and I've supplemented it here and there and added a lot of the newer units into the game. But this is my Dark Apostle. He's technically got the Dark Disciples, but I haven't finished painting them up yet. They are actually 2 Sisters of Battle Repentias from the old pewter range. And I just kind of have them mosey along. They look pretty nice set up for Chaos. I didn't do any mods to them. It's just a paint job difference. And so next, he's based slightly differently, but the old Fabius Bile. Still my preferred Fabius Bile. I really like this model. Now, it's not to say the new one is bad or anything, or just kind of anything against it, but I just like the old one. He has a lot of character. Now, I varied his paint job slightly, and he's got different basing, because at one point, many editions ago, when you could still take, well, you could take any of the Chaos special characters together, I had this grand plan of doing a Fabius Bile list where all the chosen were apothecaries, and I do still have all of those, just some of them are not as far along painted as others had been. And I was going to run a Fabius Bile and Typhus, and it was going to be themed off of the Consortium, where basically Typhus was going to be a custom job, which you'll see up here next, and basically creating just an army of apothecaries and test subjects. Now, that never came along, and that's why he's got the blood on his apron that you don't see on any of the other Emperor's children. He's got the tread plate and blood basing, and so on and so forth. But he follows otherwise my traditional kind of yellow, gold, and purple color scheme. And my stand-in for an Emperor's Children Typhus was going to be this guy. I'm not even sure where to begin with some of the Kit Bash parts. I can say where some of them were from. Some are actually, like the hoses here, I actually sculpted from green stuff. You got lamps from Cities of Death. A big blade from Ogre Kingdoms. I remember that. I think that's a Thunderhammer arm. These were supports from the old heavy weapons squad, the Imperial Guard heavy weapons squads. And oh man, I couldn't place where some of this other stuff's from. But this was going to be the Typhus that was part of the force. Now, he's just kind of a Terminator apothecary now for me. I haven't had him on the table in a very, very long time. I might, well, if I could find a unit in the game that he best fit for, I'd run him again. He's a fun one. You plop him down on the table and he looks completely foreign to everything you see today. But there's that. And the last of my more HQ orientated is Bellicor, or Baby Bill as he's jokingly referred to, because he's now on the giant 100 mil base that the new Bellicor is on, but at a substantial fraction of the height. I have actually only fielded this guy twice in all the years that I've had him. This is the original Finecast release for him. And he just sat in limbo, occasionally getting used, but never actually painted. And it wasn't until maybe about 3 years, maybe 2 years ago, that I sat down and just said, he's an easy dry brush job, just dry brush and highlight. And bada bing, he was knocked out. All right, and so that concludes the HQs. We can get into the elite choices here. These, I'm not sure the easiest way to show off. I've got 6 possessed. Now, technically, I've got the other possessed that came out that were part of one of the Battle Force boxes, but I've never gotten around to painting them. I built them, but these painted possessed that I have here are quite possibly my favorite models I ever did for the Force. Everything else just was not as much fun. I was able to do things with them and paint up details that, regardless of what edition I ran them in, they always just looked so cool on the table. So, as you can see, I did the kind of pink on the side of his face. He's kind of got the Two-Face look from Batman, except I think it's the other way around. But all of my demons or demonically possessed units in this portion of the build always have this stark white cream with heavy edge highlighting. I think it really adds to the contrast and really makes them pop on the table, where most times you've got just kind of that purple gray I think the GW uses often on their models. I don't like it. Pure and simple. It's not a matter of I don't feel anything about it. It's just I don't like it. And this guy is hell to photograph. I should point out the double face where it's stretching into 2 heads, or perhaps even merging it from one head into the other. But back when I had a written blog for everything. He was a pain to photograph. The camera did not like that double head. And you probably tell from his body that he's actually just a basic Marine body from back in the day, just with a couple of really, if I'm not mistaken, this was the 3rd edition Chaos upgrade sprue parts thrown on him for good measure. But here's the Fireball guy with the old pewter shoulder pads on him. Most of my possessed were built at the time that you could still get the old pewter shoulder pads. But one of the big things with painting these is going for the contrast. It really messes with your eyes sometimes when you look at these models in person, because the light dark contrast, the way I do it. I've actually got the paint sitting out here to further elaborate on it. But a lot of this comes down to doing as bright of edge highlights as possible. And I'll tell you, they really stand out. Yeah, this guy with his big old crab claws on both hands. It's pretty much the epitome of Emperor's Children. Big horns, big crab claws. He and the one that's lunging forward, those are two especially dynamic ones. And this guy, with almost the spider face, I actually played around a little bit with his sword. After I painted it and after I varnished it, you can buy from, I believe, Liquitex in their materials range, brush-on iridescent. So you can kind of just go back over it with an iridescent paint. It dries clear, but adds kind of this sparkle, which is pretty nice. That was an early attempt by me of adding something interesting and dynamic to the paint job, which I've recently, started using more of the color shifters and that sort. Trying to add just a little bit more of a flair to it, something a little more fun. But those are all of the possessed, or at least all the possessed to show off. Next is the ever famous Sonic Dreadnought, which, if you look at my avatar on the site, is a zoom in on his gorgeous little face. This guy has seen so many battlefields across so many editions. It's just, yeah. His Fire Frenzy is responsible for so many losses over the years. I recall one particular Fire Frenzy, which I know my opponents pretty much can... every one of them has heard this story at some point or another of him going Fire Frenzy and blasting. Now, mind you, this was his first time shooting during that game. Fire Frenzies, blasts a brand new Raptor squad I had just bought and had high expectations for. Blasts them down to a man, and then he fails his morale check and leaves the board. Ah, yes, yeah. The joys of Chaos Dreadnoughts in older editions. It was a great time. I love painting this little guy. He is, he's just got so much character. And then I always intended to get other weapon arms for him, so I actually cut a little piece of sheet metal and glued into the socket and put a small magnet up underneath. Makes storing him nice, but at the same time, I never did get around to picking up the other weapons, and now they're gone. So, thanks, G-Dub. And while not 40k per se, even though technically up until recently you could still use these, I have Brother Bacchus, as I called him. I still have plans to put together a unit of beastmen to follow him around. But my Emperor's Children Contemptor. He was a nice one to paint. I had a good time, and yes, I am guilty of my own foot on a rock club. This little rock down here is not actually even Sculpey. That is actually a rock that I got off my driveway, puttied the edges of so it came out smooth, and found it was light enough, rock-wise, I could just drill right into it. It wasn't all that hard, so he is actually pinned to a rock. And just like the other one, he's magnetized. I have some other plasma arms, so I can do him as dual plasma if I so choose, but I always like the power claw and the plasma rifle configuration. I think it looks best. So that brings us to the troops, and my multitudes of cultists. Now, these guys, I don't know if I want to go through every single one of them. They're cultists. I say that, and I think I've fielded these guys in most every game that I can. Of course, now, according to Games Workshop, the shooting cultists no longer exist because apparently cultists have lost their trigger fingers, which is unfortunate. Come on, focus, would you? There we go. That's the ticket. Yeah, my cultists have all apparently lost their trigger fingers. They were fun, though. Luckily, in 3rd edition, they still have their trigger fingers. You can still run cultists with shooting or cultists in melee. I did a couple of conversions just to break things up, added Imperial Guard heads, and in the melee ones in particular, you'll see familiar models ended up getting different weapons. Like this fella here having, okay, if it'll focus, there we go. That fella having a shovel, that one having a club. Now, I'd like to point out the idea of using a shovel as a melee weapon does not originate from the Death Korps of Krieg. Welcome to any instant of close combat with, an entrenching tool. It's kind of common there, Games Workshop and their fans. Come on, focus. There you are. All right, you got the champion with. I ended up doing him up with a gold mask, kind of the Iron Mask look, but at the same time, not so much iron, but golden. And same with this guy. I liked the old flamer. I ended up painting some little scar tissue and such on his shoulders just to break up the flat surfaces. Wish I could remember what that orange was. I always liked that. It was an old Games Workshop color from back in the day. But anyway, the cultists are cultists. There's a bunch of them. I have a lot of cultists. I ended up buying off of eBay for a while, and I think Amazon, a couple of sellers back when Dark Vengeance was out, they were selling sprues, for like $10. You could get a bunch of the cultists, and I just recall buying those like crazy. But to finish up here, we have the Noise Marines themselves. Again, I've got a good number of these, as you'll see in the thumbnail. But they are as you'd expect. They're a mix of the Forge World. Pretty much all of my sergeants are the Forge World models for the Cacophony, but I added Doom Sirens to them. Originally, I'd had all of the sergeants painted up, but I had them equipped with close combat weapons and plasma pistols, and it just never worked out for me. No matter what edition I was running, it just never seemed to work. So I opted for more of the throw some shooting in, give them a sonic blaster, and call it a day. Each of my squads also is differentiated by power conduits. I've got red conduits, blue conduits, and green to kind of break up the monotony and also, like I said, just kind of help them stand out in combat some. Because you never know, like when you're setting up. Officially, I've got just about 30 noise marines. I wish I could actually have a time to field that many of them anymore, though it should be 12-man squads, but yeah. Word is apparently they're switching them to 6-man squads now. Yay for that. At least they're giving us our sacred numbers back. Yeah, the sacred numbers were always the choice of mine for running units. So I thought, why wouldn't you run Emperor's Children in 6s and whatever the other legions are? I can't recall off the top of my head. It always felt more thematically right than the idea that for whatever reason the traitor legions were sitting there and actually running their units by Gilliman's codex of here's a 10-man squad. Well, guess what? Now you've got 10 men in your legionary squads, and that's it. Yeah, it just never made sense to me. And you'll also find here and there in these units, as well as the work in progress legionary units I've got, but like I said, I'm not showing. They have loyalist parts mixed in, because sad to say, a lot of the fate of my old Black Templars army I had in fourth, fifth, yeah, about 4th and 5th editions, they ended up just getting stripped and became kind of the basis for some of my extra bodies, where I had a lot of extra bodies and a big dream, and ended up building them out from there. But at this point, I'll kind of talk about what I did, how I do the paint job, and what I did to get this like yellow gold. So I'll leave this guy here for the moment. The basis for the model is, the purple on the model is entirely Demonette hide base. All of the armor starts as Demonette hide. It's, I think, still available. I'm not sure. I don't keep too much track of it anymore. I hope so, but I still have a few bottles of this in case of an emergency. But you start with that, go through, do all of your portions you want purple that way, and then technically I use Retributor nowadays, but Retributor wasn't the original one that was the base color for the golds. But basically you just paint all of your block colors. Ink wash the whole thing. Now originally I used Agrix Earthshade. Now I use Soft Tone by Army Painter, because the last time I used whatever it was the Agrix is turned into, it was almost a black ink, a pure black ink, as opposed to a brownish ink. And you need that brown, because officially speaking, shadows rarely come out as pure black. Only in the brightest of lights do they come out as pure black. So it normally takes a brownish hue to what you've got, unless it's, say a black shirt or a black pair of pants that you've got your shadow on. Anyway, once you've done that, you go through and take your 2 primary colors and whatever other colors you've got. Re-highlight the entire model, leaving a gap, like on this. You can see the seam line on his shoulder pad there around where the trim is. You make sure there's the darkened seam line. Go through, do your 1 layer of highlights on the model at that point. I then have, for the purple, I've actually mixed up 2 highlight layers. Now, these are, I honestly couldn't tell you. I'd have to actually scratch mix a brand new one whenever these 2 jars run out. But both of these are a mixture of kind of a bone color and the original Demonette hide. And you just kind of splotch those into place and coat back over where you had, just painted, and any of the edges. Final stage on that is Deshala Lilac, and you just kind of do a little bit of an edge line here and there, or you do the extreme peaks if it's like carved armor similar to Lucius's or the Dark Apostles. Where it differentiates is on the gold, because you just do 1 layer of Retributor armor and you create an extreme highlight then of what I use now is plasma yellow. There used to be a G-Dub color that I believe it was Bad Moon's yellow that was similar to this, but even that I think was a little darker. But you do yourself a little bit of an edge area of this plasma yellow, and your final layer of the highlight is light yellow. This goes through and creates the extreme stark bright white, but not pure white, because pure white reflecting off of it, it just, I don't know. I don't think it would look all that good. It creates an effect, though, that when the model is painted and sitting down on the table, it really stands out without being, I don't think, too cartoony. You see a lot of cartoony paint jobs, and the way G-Dub does their edge highlighting nowadays, just, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. All that said, spread some sand on the base, paint it whatever color. In this case, it's a Vallejo red leather with a dry brush of ochre and then tan. Ink wash the whole thing. And the interesting thing for this is the flocking that's here on the base, that's the pink, is not actually hobby flock. I bought on Amazon ages ago a metric ton of this actual craft flock. So it's an extremely light powdery material. And I mean extremely light. If you so much as have a breeze going through your room or your house or wherever you're working on with this thing's going flying everywhere. But I have a ton of that. It's going to last me pretty much through the entire army. And then tufts that are the Gamer Grass Alien Blue and Alien Neon, which I really like these Gamer Grass tufts. They work out well for me. They look good. It creates kind of that alien world that you don't really see anymore on tabletops. At some point, I will show off my alien world terrain that I've built. Give some tips on that one. It was a fun project. I spent a summer building nothing but an alien world. And for an affordable price. I should point out that if I was trying to build that much terrain on G-Dub's budget, I'd been hosed. Something freaky, but... Well, I will finish up the video, though, with showing off one of my projects. He's a big project for next year. This would be this big guy. Yes, I have the fulgrum transfixed. I believe that was what it was called. Not like fulgrum ascended or anything like that, but like trans something or other. So big I can't even get all of his wings on the camera. But before you gasp in horror of, my God, Command Bunker, you bought that expensive fulgrum that costs as much as, pretty much a Titan. And you'll probably get about as much use out of it as said Titan. I'd like to point out that no, I did not. This is, in fact, a copy I bought from a curious seller in England, that he said that it was an imperfect print. And in fact, you can see where things didn't line up properly. If I bring his wing up here, there's an air bubble or two, which, let's be honest, you buy a Forge World kit, it's got some problems. Forge World kits do not go together as well as G-Dub thinks they do. But that's what the hobby is for. We're supposed to have fun and make this stuff our own. So this will be my big project for the coming spring, hopefully leading up to the release. And then I will probably have to paint another fulgrum if they release another fulgrum. Because I have a problem. I have an Emperor's Children problem. I enjoy the faction, I enjoy the lore, and I really kind of enjoy painting them. They're long-winded, but they take a while to do. But what else is new? Anything that looks nice is going to take a while to do. I can't knock these out quite like I do my Dark Angels because, well, the Dark Angels are just mass production. But anyway, happy Slaaneshmas, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed seeing these. If you have any questions about how I do any of this stuff, how I paint any of it, in general, where you can find some of these things, go ahead and post in the comments section below. If not, I hope you enjoy the day being Christmas. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's also first day of Hanukkah. Otherwise, Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video.